Okay, ladies and gents, if you could please take your seats. Evening all. I'm Councillor Paul Wilby, the Chairman of the Planning Committee, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting of the committee. May I take this opportunity to advise you that if the fire alarm does sound, please remain seated. And members of the Democratic Service team will assess the situation and give further instruction on the evacuation of the building if necessary. Tonight's proceedings will be webcast by the council. But if anyone else intends to record these proceedings, can you please let me know now? No one's indicated. I ask this question not to stop you, but merely to ensure that members of the public in the room know that this is taking place. Yep, moving on. So, are there any apologies for absence? Okay. Councillor Cleaver, seeing you first.
Yeah, Councillor Dan Wilkinson, and there's no substitute because he's gone on holiday and left me all on my own.
Noted. Councillor Russell. Anyone else?
I'm subbing for Councillor Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Are there any substitute members?
Councillor Travinsky subbing for Councillor Russell.
Councillor Jones for Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Green and Councillor Jeffrey for item 14 only.
And are there any visiting members tonight? I can't see any. Oh, and Councillor Parfitt-Reid is going to be attended for one item, which is item 18, and she's en route. Okay. I believe there's one item being withdrawn from the agenda. That's correct.
Yes, Chair, that's item 19. The applicant has withdrawn the application and therefore it's been withdrawn from the agenda.
Thank you. That's the members of the public. That's the solar panels at Lock Meadow. Okay. The adjourned meeting will be held on the 29th of October if required. Unfortunately, our normal adjourned meeting date has been pinched by full council for a briefing. Hopefully we shouldn't intend to use it. Moving on, urgent items. You should all have an urgent items on your table. I intend to take all these and verbal urgent items. Is that agreed by members? Thank you. Are there any disclosures by members and officers? No.
Item 14 is Maidstone Borough Council item, but I intend to take part in that, so I've had no part to play in it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, the same.
Yeah. Anyone else? No. No members of parishes that need to disclose?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. There's two items on the agenda relating to Staples. I'm a member of Staples Parish Council. I'm not on the planning committee, so therefore I intend to speak and vote on those matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ridden. Councillor Perry.
That's exactly the same for me. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Okay, moving on to item 8. Are there any disclosures of lobbying? I will start to the left and work my way around. Councillor Fagan.
Thank you, Councillor Gooch. I've been lobbied on items 15 and 20.
Councillor Reardon, I've been lobbied on items 13, 15, 17 and 18.
Items 13, 15, 18 and 20. Items 13, 15, 17 and 18.
Councillor Spooner, could you just turn your mic, please?
Items 13, 15, 18 and 20.
Item 13, 15 and 20. And if there's any more, I've missed the emails.
Thank you, Chairman. Items 13, 15, 18 and 20.
Items 13, 15, 18 and 20.
Items 13, 15, 18 and 20.
Okay, and that's the same for myself as well. Okay. Moving on then, item 9. I move that the items on the agenda be taken in public as proposed. Is that agreed? Thank you, members. Item 10, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 18th September 2025 be approved as a correct record and signed. Is that agreed? Item 11, I believe there are no petitions this afternoon. No? Okay, deferred items. I call upon Tony Ryan, Plan Applications Manager, Development Manager, to provide an update on the deferred items.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, 6 deferred items. The George in Yalding. The Environment Agency have been chased for comments on additional flood information. Target committee for that is November. Land River Four Oaks in Baltimore, Chelsea. We have got a response back from the agent on that and aim to report that back to November as well. Mathers Farm, the applicant is undertaking a Dormouse survey, and once the results of that are known, it will be reported back. 51 London Road, we are awaiting revised drawings and B&G information on that application. The agent has agreed to revise the building appearance and relocate it further away from neighbouring buildings. The target committee, December. The school annex the applicant is about to undertake marketing for a 2-month period with a target committee in the new year. And finally, land off Old Ashford Road. Additional information has been submitted and consultations are being carried out on that information with the aim to report back to committee within the next 2 cycles. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Okay, moving on then. First item on the agenda, item 19. I call upon Sean Scott to introduce the item, please. Oh, sorry, the third. So I need a line for that one. Thank you, ma'am. Item 14 then. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for installation of 3 number air handling units on the northern side of the building, and these are described as air handling unit 1, 2, and 5. The application is retrospective and the applicant has made some borough council. The reason that the applicant has proceeded with the application is that they had limited amount of time to secure funding. Air handling unit has been installed at the ground floor level and is enclosed by a metal palisade fence. And air handling unit 2 and 5 are located on the roof, a short distance from air handling unit 1, and it serves teaching pool. The equipment is located away from the building entrance and is screened by other parts of the building and nearby trees. Proposal will not result in detrimental impact to the character and appearance of the of the area due to site context and location of the proposed air handling units. The proposal is acceptable in relation to the residential amenity and in terms of parking and highway safety. The air handling units improve the facilities and the internal environment at the leisure center, and that will in turn promote and enable sporting activity. Therefore, on this basis, I recommend the grant planning permission subject to planning conditions with delegated powers to the head of planning development to be able to settle or amend any necessary planning conditions and informative in line with the matter set out in the recommendation and as resolved by the planning committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm quite happy to move this from the chair as per the papers. Thank you, Councillor Harwood for seconding. You want to come in, Councillor Trubinski? Sorry, do you want to come? No, okay. We'll have to go to vote. Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, as approved. Yep, we'll just give Councillor Jeffrey a minute to come in. Okay, thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Just quick normal questions. Any disclosures of lobbying?
No disclosures other than one lobbying on the head corn shop one.
Thank you, Councillor. Moving on then, item 20, land north and south of Kenwood Road, Yalding, Kent. Call upon the officer, Sean Scott, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. This item relates to a reserve matters application for land north and south of Kenwood Road in Yalding. For background, I draw the attention of members to the related outline application, which was subject to a non-determination appeal and allowed by the Planning Inspectorate in December 2024. In summary, the outline application was for all matters reserved other than the principal means of access to the highway. This related to a development of up to 112 dwellings within use class C3, associated infrastructure. Paragraph 6.01 of the committee report summarises the key points established in the appeal decision. So the reserved matters application before us today covers the appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, and is for residential development of 112 two-storey dwellings on the northern parcel within use class C3. These works include associated infrastructure and landscaping and the provision of informal recreation. On the southern parcel, the proposal is for open space, drainage, landscaping and ancillary works and infrastructure. So, the site location plan, as you can see on the screen, is to the west of the settlement of Yalding, and the countryside is located to the north, south and west. So here are some photos from around the site. These are centred on Kenwood Road. The left image faces west. The top image looks east with the existing farm access to the left of the image here. So the site access will be adjacent to that. The bottom right image faces west with the existing development on the right and the edge of the southern parcel. This is the southern parcel where the public open space would be. So this is what the northern parcel looks like today. So this faces north and looks towards the Greensand Ridge. Sorry, I'm just going to make my pointer a bit clearer. It goes to the Greensand Ridge here. And this is what the southern parcel looks like today. So this image at the top here looks towards the river belt. And then you can see this looks towards the village with the oast houses here and glass houses to the west facing out towards the countryside. So here's the proposed layout of the northern parcel. So features to point out are the buffering, particularly this around the site entrance, which was improved through pre-application discussions. And then there's internal landscaping, which has been allowed for, and street trees, as well as a play area, which is to be included within open space, shared open space to the top here, to the north. And then just to kind of cover the housing formats, we've got housing in the form of detached, semi-detached, and generally small terraces of 3 units. And then the larger buildings here are maisonettes, and all are 2-storey. So here's the southern parcel. This would include the open space as well as SUDS features. So we've got a SUDS pond here, and then a swale running down towards the river. Also a mown grass path around the edges, as well as tree planting and landscaping to the top here as well, which includes hedging and other tree planting, and then tree planting around this triangular part around the SUDS pond. A small area of children's play as well is included to the top here. So here are some illustrative sketches of the development. These are also in the appendices to the committee report. And then here are some details of what the dwelling houses would look like. So as you can see, there's a mix of materials. We've got some ragstone, as well as cladding to the inside of carports, brick, and clay tile. And then we've also got weatherboard cladding and hung tile facades. And these are this is an image of the proposed maisonettes. So as set out in the committee report, officers have recommended the proposal for approval. I'll hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, I believe we have Councillor Brown from Yaldon Parish Council. She should be on Teams.
Good evening, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Chairman, members, at appeal, the inspector imposed condition 18 that prior to or as part of any relevant reserve matters application, a scheme for phasing delivery and future management for the proposed public open spaces within the proposed development, including an open space strategy specifically relating to the land south of Kenwood Road, produced in collaboration with the Council and Yalding Parish Council, shall be submitted and approved by the Council. This strategy has not yet been approved, and the officer's comment within his report specifically states the Parish Council has set out a number of recommendations with respects to the open space strategy. This is not for the reserved matters stage, and an application for the approval of details has been submitted separately. Therefore, it is our contention that this application should be deferred until such time as that application has been determined, as this is contrary to the inspector's condition. However, we would accept that the open space strategy plan be removed from condition 1. A further condition be applied that the open space strategy be delegated to the officer, but with the proviso that if no agreement is reached, it is referred back to this committee, and that condition 5 in the planning officer's report be in respect of the open spaces contained within the north site only, and not to include the south. The inspector at appeal imposed condition 7 that no development shall take place until a detailed surface water drainage scheme for the site based on sustainable drainage principles and an assessment of hydrological and hydrogeographical. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Context of the development has been submitted to and approved in writing. This must be fully understood at the discharge of this condition to ascertain the consequences of any disturbance of natural springs below the surface. Parking is a severe ongoing issue in the village, particularly since the building of the glebe on Vicarage Road, which has pushed a lot of the traffic and particularly light commercial vehicles out onto Vicarage Road, which has had a huge impact on the other roads and the high street. We do not believe that the parking strategy that is accommodated with this application will sort out the problem, and that we will end up with parking on the footway and the verges, causing damage to the verges themselves and any habitats. Councillors did ask whether it was possible for a planning condition to be imposed that prevents the developer from imposing parking restrictions on the site that would force vehicles to park on the highway and verges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor. I now call upon the applicant.
Good evening. I am Chris Lockhead, the Operations Director at Fernham Homes. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee this evening. Fernham are a local SME home builder. We have been operating for over 26 years with a strong track record for building thoughtfully designed, high quality family homes and places across Kent. Fernham have completed several developments in the borough, and our latest scheme in Sutton Valence will deliver 105 homes, including 40% affordable housing, a convenience store and land reserved for a new doctor's surgery. Fernham acquired this site from Hallam Land, who received outline planning permission via an appeal in late 2024. This reserve matters application provides the scale, layout and appearance of the homes alongside the landscaping principles of the site. The outline planning permission establishes the principle of development, the quantum of homes, the design and location of vehicular access and mitigation for wider transport impacts. The appeal inspector was satisfied that the buffer zones proposed were adequate and conditioned this detail. We are not changing the depth or location of these agreed buffer zones. The outline planning permission secured Section 106 planning obligations, including affordable housing and open space, together with financial contributions towards local education and improvements to sustainable transport. We have worked closely with your officers through a planning performance agreement, together with other stakeholders, including the Parish Council. We have dedicated a significant amount of time to ensuring that the design, layout and mix of the homes and open spaces are of high quality and respect the character of the area and reflect the feedback received through stakeholder discussions. The scheme will deliver 112 new family homes, 40%, 45 number, will be affordable homes, with 2 of these being wheelchair accessible. We are in advanced discussions with West Kent Housing and are committed to delivering these homes. The proposals will provide 5.6 hectares of open space, meaning 63% of the site remains undeveloped, 20% biodiversity net gain across all 3 habitat types, a nature pond, a permanently wet suds basin, and extensive tree and hedge planting, alongside each home having an air source heat pump and electric vehicle charging point. We note comments made by Yalding Parish Council. These are addressed either through this application or controlled by conditions attached to the outline planning permission, which will be submitted for consideration in due course. We commit to continuing our dialogue with Yalding Parish Council. Our proposals have received only 2 letters of objection, no statutory consultees have objectives, and have been strongly supported by your officers. Fernham endorsed Mr Scott's recommendation and respectfully requests that Planning Committee grants planning permission this evening. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for being bang on time as well. Okay, Councillor Summersgill has the word. Member.
Thank you very much. I've had some discussions with the applicant on this particular site, particularly on drainage details and design, but I understand that those come in detailed design later. I still have concerns that we're looking at a 4-5 metre deep pond for the suds and also that the land to the very south corner is lower than the rest of the site. So I'm assuming the water doesn't drain uphill. But this is only on certain aspects of the application: layout, appearance, landscaping, and scale. So therefore, although I have concerns that the drainage can be implemented, it doesn't appear to be part of this application.
Okay, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as the ward councillor has pointed out, this is reserve matters application, only refers to some specific areas of the application. And because of my long professional interest in the Alding area, let's say, I've taken quite a significant interest in the travails of this application. And I have to say that in terms of quality and in terms of compliance with the spirit of our policies, it is, you know, pretty as close as you can get to an exemplar, I think. I mean, you know, if you compare it to some other applications, not a million miles away from it, and this, you know. So I think that I am very happy to move that we do grant permission as per the papers. My only very small observations are that because of the preponderance of our little newty friends in this area, that we will require recessed curbstones adjacent to the gully pots, because as we know, if they walk along the edge of the and fall down the drain otherwise, and those recessed curbstones work very well, and we've proved that on other sites across the borough. So that was one small thing. We've not yet had the full detail of the planting plan worked up. I would also like to add an informative that planting scheme, particularly for the north and south open spaces for the scheme, that they incorporate English oak and goat willow. And then the reason I say that, I'm not kind of fetishist about trees, it's just that in that area we have had the appearance of purple emperor butterflies in some of the woodlands, and they rely really upon both of those trees, and it would be very nice to get them close to the village centre. So I think I would put that, yeah, we can't force it at this point, but if we can put it as an informative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harwood. I believe Councillor Czerwinski, did you gone? Okay, Councillor Cleaver.
Well, based on what Councillor Harwood has said, taken on board all he said, I'm happy to second approval. Nice to get some with social or affordable housing in, and not using an excuse that they're a smaller SME building and they can't afford to build them. So on that basis, I'm happy to second the approval.
Okay, does anyone wish to comment on this, or? No. Oh, Councillor Stuart Jeffries.
Yeah, I was just wondering if officers could advise on this. There seems, I can't see any solar panels on any of the roofs. Just wondered if you could comment on whether that's possible at this point, whether we've gone too far into reserve matters, or whether we could possibly secure solar on the roofs.
I'm afraid no solar panels are approved on the roof. Are included on the roof, or any of the roofs. And what I would say is that they pass the energy requirements for 10%. So as far as I'm concerned, the policy requirement has been met in that regard.
So can I just supplementary on that? So are you suggesting that that you aren't recommending that this is the point where we could insist on solar if it was policy compliant, but we can't push the company further than what they've done? Because I'd quite like to push them a bit further and get solar on the roofs, if at all possible, and secure that by way of condition.
I think reading the report, they're compliant. I think we could put as an informative, as you know, we'd like some solar, especially on the social housing, which is the area where it does matter most. But I think if they are compliant with the recommendation, with our own policy, Stuart, I think it's hard to push them. But I will let the officer come back and just clarify that.
So condition 16 on the outline consent requires the applicant to submit details of 10% renewable energy. We don't know the scheme or how they're going to achieve that yet. Obviously, that will be submitted for condition, but we could put an informative on to say we encourage the use of solar panels to facilitate that 10%.
Councillor Jeffrey, do you?
They definitely have. We think that each home might have an air source heat pump, which is to achieve it will have an air source heat pump.
Okay, thank you, officers. Kath Harwood, you did indicate to come back.
Just to come back on this, what we've done in cases like this before is we have put an informative requesting that it's negotiated for the affordable element, because as we know, they're the bigger units in this, and often in discussion with the social housing provider, that makes it viable and affordable. So I think that's the way to do it. If we put it as an informative, that the emphasis and the focus on that be the affordable units.
Councillor Harwood. Councillor Cleater, are you happy with that? No? Okay, I think on the basis of that, with the curbstones, the informative about English oak and goat willow to be planted in the southern area, and the solar panels, if possible, on the social housing, I will move to the vote. All in favour? It's 11-4. Those against? None. Those abstaining? 1. That is approved. Okay, moving on. Item 13. Land west of Lodge Road, Staplehurst, Kent. Call upon Richard Timms to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So this is an application seeking full permission for 81 houses and outline permission for a commercial building of up to 1,000 square metres. So this is the location of the site, outlined in red here. On the western end of Lodge Road. You've got the Lodge Road Industrial Estate buildings next door, train station here, level crossing over the railway line just here, that's referred to in the report, and then to the west and the south is the Dickingsgate housing estate, relatively new housing estate. This is in the papers, so it's just showing the full detailed part in red, which is basically the housing, and then the outline part for the commercial in blue, where we're not considering any details, just the principle of it. Again, this is in the papers, so this is the layout of the housing. As I say, it takes access from the end of Lodge Road, then going into the site with an area of open space with a play area, which is around an existing pond here, and then sort of 2 housing areas. So as you can see there, northeast corner balancing pond and a pumping station, and then on the south side there's a newly created pond at the entrance, balancing pond on the west, obviously the housing there, and then a open space and play area at the south end. And I think on this plan you can see how this sort of open spaces on the west, particularly the one here, tie up with open space there where there's a pond there, and so this complement the open space that's there. Just a couple of street scenes, not dissimilar from the last scheme, but just giving you an idea of the sort of traditional style houses. And just quickly go through a few photos. So it's a few years old, but this is the end of Lodge Road, so the access links in there. Then we're in the site looking south, and you can see, again, this is a couple of years ago, but you can see the Dickingsgate development, which goes right up to the edge of the site. Now we're at the south end, so roughly where one of the play areas would be. and that's the boundary with Dickens Gate. This is much more recent photograph of the site. So this is a fence that's been put up between the two sites. You can see one of the commercial buildings in the background. That's looking back down. So again, it's that curved boundary, the housing estate next door. Then lastly, this is the northern part of the site. So there would be housing sort of roughly here, and then the outline part is just at the back there. So I'm just going to go through one key issue, which is the lack of affordable housing being provided. That's in conflict with the local plan review policy. But the applicant has submitted an appraisal, which in summary concludes that the costs of the development are at such a level that the scheme is not viable with any affordable housing. This has been checked and assessed by consultants on behalf of the council who agree with the conclusions, and further detail is set out in the urgent update. Now, members may question why a greenfield site in a rural area cannot provide any affordable housing, as did we, and we put it to our consultants. And they'd advise that essentially the costs of constructing the development, particularly some of the items that are set out in the urgent update, are contributing to higher than normal build costs. They also advise that the commercial part, which is included in the assessment, has a negative impact on the viability. So based on their advice, the conclusions of the appraisal have been accepted by officers, but this does still weigh against the development as we've set out in the report. So just to summarise the sort of on this point, as I say, the proposals are in conflict with the affordable housing policy because none is being provided. But there is evidence that demonstrates it's not viable, which has been accepted by our consultants. As I say, it's also partly because of the commercial development. So the weighing up that we've taken is the lack of any affordable housing, and the conflict with the policy attracts moderate weight against the development. But the provision of the housing, albeit only market housing, in the context of not having a 5-year supply, attracts significant weight in favour. And so we balance that that it tips in favour of approving permission. There's obviously many other issues in the report, but on balance, permission is recommended. There's an urgent update, and we've had one neighbour representation since the agenda was published, but it doesn't raise any new issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timms. Right. Councillor Ash for Staplehurst Parish.
Good evening. The Parish Council stands by its comments of the 27th of August, in that we stand by our comments of the 26th of April regarding this site. However, we strongly reiterate that this development should deliver the appropriate affordable housing and S106 SIL contributions in line with the adopted NPPF and NBC local plan policies. We accept this site is in the local plan and is likely to be approved. However, we would like to raise several important points. The lack of affordable housing is disappointing. The recent housing needs assessment for Staplehurst emphasised that there is significant annual flow of locally arising need for affordable housing annually and cumulatively over the 5-year horizon of the HNS, which will not be met from local supply. Based on Staplehurst housing needs assessment household survey data, there's an annual need of between 41 and 48 of affordable housing units per annum. Therefore, Staplehurst will benefit from the wrong type of housing. The viability argument is at best spurious. Yet again, Staplehurst will benefit from the housing, but not the required infrastructure. The lack of a link road goes against all sensible planning principles. However, we accept the applicant is doing their best. The adjacent developer has already created a ransom strip to prevent the link road. In addition, there is a wire fence along the length of the boundary on the adjoining site, so even pedestrian access is not guaranteed. The development will be landlocked with only access via a busy industrial estate used by large vehicles. Another key issue is the junction of Lodge Road and Station Approach. This junction is already hazardous. Numerous children and residents use the station approach to get to the train. It's poorly lit and dangerous, especially for children heading to and from school in the dark. Staplehurst is the largest rural service centre, yet the roads and pavement access to the station is in a poor state with busy junctions, badly maintained pavements and no safe crossing point for pedestrians. The claimed BNG target is only achievable if the commercial element is delivered as proposed. If it does not, it will fall below the 20% BNG target. There are also concerns regarding the surface water drainage and the capacity of local sewers, with Southern Water highlighting the need for upgrades. However, we cannot see any upgrades in the application. When making your planning decision, we would request setting aside the need for a strategic sill to be used to develop a mini roundabout at the junction of Lodge Road and Station Approach, plus a Pelican Crossing. Further parking restrictions in the first part of Lodge Road from Station Approach should be considered both during the build phase and once occupied. Cars are parked regularly close to both bends, adding to road safety issues. Confirm how the BNG targets will be delivered. Confirm how the lack of surface water drainage will be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ash. Can I have Mr. Brucey for the applicant, please?
Thank you, members, for your time this evening. The proposals before you are a combination of nearly 4 years of pre-application and application submissions, and through dedicated work from council officers and the applicant during a time of a significant shift in both planning policy and market effects. These compound effects have resulted in a significantly different planning and financial landscape when compared against the local plan viability evidence in 2018. Notwithstanding this, the site delivers 81 much needed homes, substantial open space, 260 trees and over 23% biodiversity net gain on site, alongside the retention of a commercial site for future economic need. Should the scheme before you tonight be approved, it will enable the development of a site that has laid in an unviable state for nearly 25 years. Unlike other greenfield allocations, this site originally formed an employment allocation in the local plan dating back to the year 2000. The approval of this site would see a valuable contribution to Maidstone's housing numbers on an allocated infill site in a very sustainable location, helping the council alleviate pressure to release unplanned development on unallocated greenfield sites. The proposals have been subject to 2 extraordinarily robust viability assessments, with the conclusions agreed by the council's independent assessors. They agree that this site is different to other greenfield sites due to the technical constraints associated with its position as an infill site, the resulting range of abnormal costs and the policy requirements to develop part of the site for employment, which does create a significant negative financial loss. The applicant made several representations during the local plan stages, highlighting the issues involved with the retention of the employment allocation element and its financial impact. However, the policy mix of uses did not change and the application has been advanced in accordance with the policy. This is an unfortunate position, but it ultimately significantly contributed to the application's current form. Notwithstanding the above, the applicant has strived to make sure that the proposals are best in class in terms of design. Indeed, the application was signed off by leading counsel before submission, and we consider that the proposals will provide an environment which will be pleasant, attractive, and positively received by the local community. And we trust the committee will respect officers' recommendation to approve this application. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. A few people indicating to speak, but obviously I'll take the ward councillors first. Councillor Ridden or Councillor Perry.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Ash has said it all, really, but let me come back to one of the reasons I called this in was because of the lack of affordable homes. This is really needed, certainly in Staplehurst, and I'm sure it's needed elsewhere. And whilst I've read the papers, I still don't understand why a greenfield site can't justify affordable homes. It still doesn't make sense to me. The other issue I had, well, I've got two other very key issues on this. One is the access. Now we know that there is a ransom strip, which means that all traffic has to come out through Lodge Road, Station Road, and onto 229. And I think we can take that as an absolute given. It's not going to change. So this is, quite frankly, you're putting 81 houses, and let's be frank, you're going to have probably 80 cars, extra cars, coming through a site that is bendy, that also has commercial vehicles coming and going all the time, including during the night, actually, because you've got Sainsbury's backing onto it as well with their deliveries. So this, to me, just does not make sense. Now, Kent Highways say it's all tickety-boo and okay. Well, with due respect to Kent Highways, that's what they always say. I've never been in a committee where Kent Highways has actually come up and objected to anything. In fact, one of my colleagues proposed that we had a banner made for this committee that we just put it up every time and said Kent Highways has no objections, because that's basically what Kent Highways are all about. So I think this access issue is a serious issue that I think makes this whole proposal very, very difficult. The third point I got is drainage. Now, drainage in this area is an absolute, it's a serious issue. In the neighbouring estate, they've had major drainage problems. We know there are issues with the public sewer, and in fact, Southern Water have actually highlighted this in their comment, and they're absolutely right to do so. And I think further work needs to be done on that. We also know that Southern Water's water treatment centre in Couchman Green Lane in Staplehurst is at full capacity. So further work does need to be done in this particular area. So they're the main points I've got. I'm very unhappy about this whole issue of affordable housing. I think I just can't see it at this moment. I think access is a major problem here. It really is. And I think we need to take that very seriously. And I know there are potential drainage issues here, particularly with surface water mixing in with foul water, which has occurred quite near to this site. And that is another major issue. So personally, I would like to see this whole proposal deferred. I realise we got the tilted balance. I realise that it's in the local plan, and these are significant issues as well. But I get that. But I think these issues are so important that that it needs further looking at, quite frankly, before we could possibly accept it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Riddon.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support what Councillor Perry has said, and I'm sure members of this committee are aware that the only route in and out of this proposed development is via station approach, which, and Staplehurst is a very busy train station to and fro London, and then via the industrial estate in Staplehurst. So that is the only route, and as Councillor Perry quite eloquently said, it's a real issue that every vehicle coming out of this estate will be coming onto the A229 via station approach and the industrial estate. Station approach is incredibly busy road at times of trains arriving and leaving. You get traffic logged there already, and I'm very surprised that there has been no comments from Kent Highways. In relation to the actual development itself, I'm quite comfortable with it. There is clearly drainage issues in relation to sewerage and fresh water. And as it's in the local plan and our current situation with the 5-year housing land supply, I'd be minded to approve it, but these items are of incredibly
important matters for the residents of Staplehurst and through traffic. So I'll wait to hear what my associates say, but I am very concerned about those matters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Redden. I know that other speakers waiting to come in, but I was also going to say, Councillor Perry, are you proposing that we do defer? Just want to clarify that.
Yes, I'm happy to propose that.
Okay, I'm happy
Just
to second
defer.
that because
Thank you.
I also have concerns about, especially around the social housing, hence the urgent update and the fact that it's not. We've just assessed it on the 40%. To be offered nothing at all is my kind of is a bit of a kick in the gut, to be honest. And the other issues that have actually been raised as well, I think need to be addressed. So, I will let you come in, Councillor Cleaver. So, yeah, I am going to move it on those matters as well, and the access and the drainage. I think the especially the highlight with the school issue that has well, due to the fact that the only access will be through the industrial estate, you know, there should be an assessment done for the safe walk into the school. You know, you could have 81 houses there to go with it. You could potentially 81 children accessing through an industrial estate across a very busy road. Has that been assessed? So this is just for deferral. So I'm not. Yeah, I will. I'll let the other councillors come in. So on that note, I will then go to Councillor Cleaver and Councillor Harwood and Summersgill.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. It says one of the applicants is Ilka Homes Land Limited. That is a company that's been wound up. So how can they be party to this if they've been wound up and are no longer functioning? I mean, the rest I agree with on, but to me, that's even in the trade union, if the company's wound up or in administration, we're not allowed to deal with them.
There's two applicants, so it was Ilka Homes, but they've gone, but it's also the landowner, so the landowner is now running the application. So you've got two applicants.
Just a point of clarification then Ilka Homes Land Limited should be off as an applicant because they're not functioning. I know I'm being pedantic here, but if they manage to close a company losing £319 million as per reports, then I don't want social housing being told it can't be done because it's not viable if it's used to pay off debts of a company that's been wound up. Sorry, I know it's not a planning issue, but when you take it away, can you find out some information, please?
I think that's something that could be addressed when by looking at that we are going to go for deferral. That will be raised. Okay. Yeah, they're not involved in this thing, but obviously with the application, it shouldn't actually be on the application itself. Yeah, that's a legal matter, which the legal team, it's not a planning matter. Okay. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the previous speakers, except for Councillor Cleaver, are gentler and kinder than me, because this just looks like a straight refusal to me. It's a greenfield site that was allocated in the 2024 local plan. The policy criteria states 40% affordable housing. So it's contrary to its actual allocation policy, LBRSP 10B. But worse than that, we're talking about the tilted balance. The tilted balance does not apply to the overarching NPPF policies that relate to this site. I mean, paragraph 59 of the NPPF states that a viability assessment applies where there is a change in circumstances, there is no change in circumstances, or there is not an up-to-date local plan. Our local plan is just over a year old. So, you know, to me, that seems open and shut. And then we move on to the overarching thrust of the latest iteration of the National Planning Policy Framework. Paragraph 63, in the delivering a sufficient supply of homes chapter, it states that affordable housing must be a policy priority in terms of what the local authority, the planning authority delivers. And to my mind, it's an allocated site with a criteria. If one promoter stroke developer cannot deliver it, another one can. We're not here to, you know, we're not an economic development team. We're a planning committee, and we operate by the local plan and by the NPPF. That's what we've drilled into us in training week after week after week. So I'm a little bit bemused by where we're going with this, because I just think it's a refusal on non-delivery of the affordable housing, and that's it. And I am, you know, I don't usually stick my neck out, but I think on an appeal, it is, you know, we have a more than evens chance of winning because the local plan is so recent and because of the other sites pertaining, and you know, I hear you know, what the circumstances are, but they do not seem stand out exceptional to me. You know, we have had an application on a site which also had issues in a very similar location in another low-wheeled village earlier on, but they're delivering 40%, much bigger open spaces and a much more sophisticated drainage strategy. So frankly, I feel like I will listen to officers, but I feel like moving an amendment that we just refuse.
Okay, Councillor, can I bring the officer just in just to clarify those few points that you brought up, and then the speakers I've got remaining are Summersgill and Spooner to come back in. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think as set out in the urgent update, as Councillor Harwood says, the NPPF states that, you know, if you put an application in, you should comply with the local plan and the viability assessment that came with that. And what's changed since? Now, I think, as we've said, that hasn't been explicitly set out by the applicant, so I'm not going to say that on their behalf. They haven't done that. So we said to our consultants, yeah, what's changed? I think it's worth noting the viability evidence was 2021. Obviously, the plan was adopted last year, but the viability evidence is 2021. So what the consultants advise us is they just said build costs have gone up. But I'm not here to defend that position, but it's just that is my understanding of the change. But yeah, I think as set out in the report, we're very surprised of this situation as well. The commercial element does affect viability, but that's part of the allocation. I think in terms of if we're going, I'm not sure what we're doing now, whether it's deferral or not. I think we might just need some clarity on what's being asked for on deferral. In terms of refusing, obviously we've balanced it, and that's why I was at pains to set out how we've balanced it. The committee can balance it differently. So if they did intend to refuse, I don't see that as being unreasonable. Obviously, we've balanced it the other way.
Thank you for clarification. I've got Councillor Summersgill wishing to speak, and then Councillor Spooner.
Yeah, mine was a more technical thing, as it would be on drainage again. In 773, we've got there's going to be capacity upgrades secured between developer and Southern Water under separate legislation, but condition 24 seems to be just a verification report for the on-site surface water, and I think it needs to include the off-site Southern Water works as well. It needs stronger wording in condition 24 there.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Summersgill. Councillor Spooner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the ward councillors on either side know much more about this site than I do. I think it's a well-designed development. I think that the developers have done a good design, a good layout. What concerns me is the lack of affordable housing. And I just cannot, I suppose I'm sceptical and cynical by nature, but I am just not convinced by the arguments that the applicants have put forward about not being able to provide the affordable housing. And I look down at the urgent update at the bottom of the page there. And it says some of the main costs include, cut and fill exercise, off-site pedestrian improvements, on-site power reinforcement, sound attenuation. These are all bread and butter issues that any developer worth his salt and with due diligence would investigate before they make an offer to buy the site. This is what developers do, and they should then be negotiating with the landowner to get a lower price. That is what this is all about, and that is the problem that we are now facing. I have every respect for what the officers have tried to do to try and resolve this situation. I mean, I think if we took this to appeal, we'd have a damn good chance of winning it. With an up-to-date local plan requiring 40% affordable housing, we'd have a damn good chance of winning it. But I mean, I'm inclined to just ask for perhaps support, Councillor Perry, in having a deferment to see what better development our officers can negotiate. And if we can't, we refuse it. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spooner. Before I come back to Councillor Perry, Councillor Draminsky has actually indicated to talk. Councillor Spooner, you turn your microphone off.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, again, it's the affordable housing for me, but also the fact that, well, if we were to approve it, then we'd have a queue of people outside with, asking for the same thing. And I have failed to grasp exactly why this should be an exception. If there is an exception and it can be proved to be an exception financially, showing the whole figures, then we could consider it. But I've failed to see anything that would persuade me otherwise. And as I said, if we agree one, then we'll open the floodgates for everyone else.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chair, and members. I've listened to the arguments, and I'm going to be very brief. I'm happy to withdraw my proposal, and I would, if Councillor Harwood wishes to go forward on his proposal, I would be happy to second it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perry. Just give me 2 seconds. The officers want to come in slightly. Well, where we've been going on, I know it's just an hour, but I'm going to probably just advise that Councillor Harwood, if you're proposing the refusal, that you come up with some wording. I need a personal break, so I'm going to say we adjourn for 5 minutes while you come up with that wording, if members are happy. And in that time, if you can come up with some wording with the officer, and then we'll come back. Okay, thank you. Okay, councillors, can we make a start again, please? Councillor Harwood, are you close to? Nearly there, okay. While waiting for Councillor Harwood, is there anything else anyone wishes to discuss or any other reasons for refusal apart from the ones that pertain to take into account maybe? You want to raise, Councillor Riddon?
Thank you, Chairman. A matter that I noted, which I meant to mention earlier, which is recorded on here from Network Rail. There is an unprotected rail crossing very close to this site. In my lifetime, I believe there's 3 or 4 people been killed crossing this railway. So that is another. I'm very pleased that Network Rail did comment with it, but it's something that I think we should back up and use as part of any rejection of the application.
Right. So on that issue, my advice would be not to use that as a reason for refusal. Obviously, the council have allocated this site. I mean, it's similar to the Lodge Road points. The council have allocated this site at the end of an industrial estate and next to a level crossing. That doesn't mean don't try and mitigate or work things out, but there is a gap between the two sites, and then under the recommendation, it was to put in sort of solid boundary treatments to prevent people walking to the public right of way. I think as we say in the report, it doesn't mean any people aren't going to walk the long route round. But my advice would be not to refuse it on those grounds. I think we would struggle to defend that suitably at appeal.
My thoughts were that we could request a safer crossing, an overhead crossing, but I completely accept what Richard has said.
Whilst I wait for council, I think I had this conversation with Mr. Timms. There are nowadays crossing systems that gates lock when there's a train coming, etc. All the rest of it that hasn't been looked into. But again, it's not really a reason for refusal. However, hopefully when they watch the tapes back, they take into consideration the items raised. Councillor Harwood, are you ready?
I am.
So
Yeah,
just before you start, I'm just going to confirm that Councillor Perry withdraws his proposal for deferral, and I withdraw my seconding for that deferral. Confirmed?
Yes, I confirm that. Yeah.
Okay. And I also want to confirm that your seconder is Councillor Cleater. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Harwood.
right. Thank you, Chairman. The committee has agrees to refuse the application on the grounds that it is contrary to policy LBR SP10B, which is the allocation within the 2024 local plan review, and that the local authority is cognizant of the prevailing 5-year supply situation affecting the borough. However, the committee's balancing duty acknowledges the fact that the failure to deliver affordable housing conflicts significantly with the council's top priority, with i.e. delivery of affordable housing, and the delivery of mixed communities. I think it's H3 or something. It's in the local plan. Yeah. But I'm sure officers can find the relevant policies in housing. And we can also add to that we delegate to officers the ability to check the relevant national planning policy framework policies to ensure that they are correctly reflected in the grounds for refusal, because I think it's 59, 63, and there's a view that it could be 61, and it's one of those. Yeah. And I pick up anything else that needs to be picked up can be picked up under that delegation. But the key one there is we've undertaken the balancing duty, identified that affordable housing is the top priority for this council and is a part of the allocation. So I think that's the fundamental issues. In terms of the other issues, you know, we did think about, you know, the other thing, but frankly, I think the affordable housing element is what this application stands or falls on. And without the support of the Highway Authority on things like the access, I think that will muddy the waters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. On that note, then I will move to the vote. Sorry.
Yes, it just, and I think you've covered it, Councillor Harwood. Yeah, because we're in the 5-year supply scenario, it's the balance. I think what councillors are saying is, notwithstanding the viability appraisal and the 5-year position, the conflict and the lack of affordable housing significantly outweighs benefits. That's the sort of NPPF balance. Thank you.
That's Howard. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So you want to take it, Howard? No. Okay. Okay. So just to be clear, we're voting for refusal. Yeah. Okay. So all those in favour of refusal. That's 11 for refusal. Those against? 1 against. And that means no abstentions. That is refused. Okay, moving on then. Move on to item 18. I call upon Will Fletcher to introduce the report for Pheasant Lane, East Farley.
Thank you. So the application tonight is at Pleasant Valley Lane, which is to the east of Dean Street in East Farley. The application seeks to demolish an existing stable and storeroom and in their place erect a single-storey dwelling. In policy terms, the application site is situated in the countryside and there is no policy support for new build dwellings in these locations. So just to review some of the site photos, we have the site viewing west, viewing east, south towards the existing buildings, and north. So there have been 4 previous applications on this site seeking residential development, and all have been refused. The most recent 3 have been subject to appeal and were dismissed. The most recent appeal decision, issued in July 2024, was made using policies from the current adopted local plan review. So whilst it's acknowledged that there's been a reduction in terms of the scale of the dwelling, it's not assessed that a reduction in scale alone addresses the harm which has been identified by the LPA or the inspectorate. Located further along the lane, away from the existing developed area, on currently open land, the proposed dwelling would introduce sporadic development, causing encroachment into the countryside, significantly harming its character. Whilst the proposed enhancements to landscaping are acknowledged, nevertheless, the introduction of a house, driveway, and domestic curtilage with its associated paraphernalia would result in an urbanising development, detrimentally altering the intrinsic rural character of this part of the lane. This would be visible from the public right-of-way. Inspector has also upheld the LPA's decisions related to the sustainability of the location. So a number of comments, including the calling request, raised recent development in the area of Coxheath. The inspector has addressed this point. The cul-de-sac developments in the vicinity are strategic sites that were agreed under previous local plans. They're not visible from the application site, and so they don't have any impact on our site here. So there have been 4 refused planning applications seeking residential development in this location, 3 dismissed appeals, and these have greater weight, being that the LPA's decisions have been supported by independent inspectors. The decision to refuse the first application in 2018 was in a similar context today, in that there was also no 5-year housing supply. In order to go against these decisions, members will need to demonstrate that there's been a clear and significant change in circumstances, and it is the officer's view that this change has not taken place. As such, the application is recommended for refusal as per the papers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Will. Could I just ask that you take down the, I've been informed by a few people watching, especially the KM, they find it hard to watch us on the little screen at the bottom. No, so take the actual presentation down, because otherwise it's hard for the people at home, the 8 people that are watching, to actually work out who's actually talking. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Councillor Parfitt-Reid.
Good evening, members, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening in support of this application in my ward. Firstly, the proposal is modest in scale and directly responsive to national and local priorities to diversify housing delivery. The scheme converts a site with existing stables and stores to a single dwelling designed to replicate the existing structure. A classic example of a small site self-build that the National Planning Policy Framework and recent guidelines encourage as a practical way to increase housing choice and meet local demand. Allowing such plots helps broaden the supply, large-scale developers, and supports families and individuals building their own homes. Secondly, the application has the support of the local community's representatives. East Farley Parish Council considered the proposal and registered no objections, which signals that the design, scale and access impacts have been considered appropriate by those closest to the site. That local endorsement is an important material consideration. Thirdly, the application is proportionate to the character and pattern of development in the area. The planning statement and related documentation place the proposals clearly within the context of nearby residential development and demonstrate how the dwelling can be integrated through the sympathetic materials and landscaping and retained vegetation. Where other nearby small residential permissions exist, this plot would sit comfortably in the local landscape without causing harm to the street scene or setting. Fourthly, the scheme is capable of being delivered without adverse highway or amenity impacts. The proposal provides on-site parking and sensible access arrangements. Any minor highways or drainage issues can be controlled with the standard planning conditions and appropriate construction management plans, ensuring neighbours are protected during the construction and occupation. Finally, planning is about balance, and with the loss of our 5-year housing land supply, the tilted balance should rightly be applied in favour of sustainable development. This proposal offers clear benefits: a self-built home that contributes modestly to local housing supply, enjoys parish support, and has been sensitively designed with manageable, addressable impacts. I therefore urge the committee to look favourably upon this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, moving on. Councillor Palmer. For East Farley.
East Farley Parish Council has no objections to the planning permission. The council are aware that the site is outside of the settlement boundary and are normally opposed to sporadic development in open countryside. However, the application will be replacing the existing stable block and so will not be any more visually imposing from the public right-of-way along Pleasant Valley Lane or from any of the site's neighbours. The applicant has greatly improved the site to benefit nature and the local environment and will no doubt continue to improve and manage the whole site should the planning application be approved. The proposed development is on a substantial plot and will not be further developed by the applicant. In short, rather than harm the local environment, this application will improve it and is likely to ensure that the eastern end of Pleasant Valley Lane will remain of great benefit to local residents from the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And then we have Mr. Ward for the applicant.
Good evening, councillors. Our 2-acre field was once part of Pleasant Valley Farm, end of the lane, a 4.5-acre holding bought in 1948 by my parents with no services. Mother wasn't too pleased. The lane then served 3 cottages, a chapel and Pleasant Valley Farm. It had a rustic charm on entry off-road. It now serves 15 dwellings, mostly out of rural character, so no consideration for the lane then. My parents worked the holding for 10 years for sole income, growing fruit and veg. We had pigs, chicken and geese. Most of them had names. Market day wasn't a good day for mother. From 1958 to 1966, ration books disappeared. Holdings become less viable. Father then complemented his income as caretaker to East Farley School. In 1966, the farm was sold with 2.5 acres. We bought 2 to maintain a family connection. In 1966 to 2016, friends various had the field for equine use. No charge, just keep it tidy. However, we took the field back and there was a job of work to be done, hopefully to prove us worthy of living on site. We have increased biodiversity immensely and there is more to come. We are now custodians of the lane to the acclaim of those using it daily and have supported us immensely throughout this process. Potholes, hedges, verges, now all maintained. In a previous application, the inspectorate thought, given its close proximity to urbanised Coxheath, it did not represent an isolated dwelling in the countryside. As you know, councillors, from our lobby, we have listened to the comments from the local planners and amended our application. The reasons given for refusal have effectively been met and cannot now be argued with. In particular, visual impact with this latest design using the stable footprint. It's modest, low profile, matching stable in fabric, no visible windows in from the lane, an exact mirror image of the stables that have been there for 50 years. Recent government directives suggested planners should give consideration to public views. This is why we feel it is the perfect case to be presented to you. Maidstone's planning target has been missed, though a requirement to apply a more tilted balanced approach to planning should approve applicants unless there is substantial reason for refusal. The application falls into this category. For all these reasons and the long family connection to this site and village, I ask you to look favourably at this application. Thank you for listening and thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ward. I don't believe we have any ward members. Technically, I'm the closest, but I see Councillor Travinski has wished to speak and then Councillor Riddon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just quickly looking at the recommendation for refusal. The proposal will result in significant harm to the character and appearance of this rural location. Well, I don't think it will, because actually it looks probably better or the same as what's already there. Urbanising impact of the development. Well, again, I don't see how it's urbanising in any way, shape or form, actually. And then the proposal first respond positively or enhance local character. Well, that's not what we've been hearing from the speakers, I don't think. Then we talk about the travel. Well, we know people are going to be going there anyway in their car because that's it. And I don't think that's a valid excuse, really. But more to the point, I think time and time again, I hear councillors saying, oh, crikey, we get objections from parish councils and they don't come to represent them. And then I hear parish councils say, well, when we come, no one pays any attention to us. And I think in this case, this is supported by the ward member, the parish council, looking at the plans and looking at everything on it, it's going to make absolutely zero difference to anything. So I would fully support this application. Thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I'm minded to agree with Councillor Treminsky. Rural parish councils very often don't want buildings, and to have it so supported as an improvement to their community is something that I certainly take into consideration, although it's not necessarily planning matters. However, I do think our visiting ward member and Councillor Palmer made some very valid points in support of the application. So I'm certainly minded to approve. That's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harwood, then Councillor Spooner.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think my heart agrees with the speakers so far that you know that this site is at the end of a row of houses rather than the open countryside, and you know there have been enhancements in terms of landscape. However, we are a regulatory committee that must go by the development plan, and it's clearly contrary to policy. And if we were to make an exception, though there's no precedent in planning, everyone who's got a stable somewhere is going to say, well, you know, this is near a residential area, we can make it look a bit like the stable, and therefore we'll get the kind of ribbon development creep that town and country planning was designed to prevent. So, you know, frankly, unless and you know we can get a change to the policy map, we just cannot, because it's contrary to policy, permit this. And therefore I'm willing to move the refusal as per the papers.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Spooner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, a fundamental part of our local plan is to protect the countryside, and that is what we should be doing. This application flies in the face of all our statutory policies in our local plan. There's a whole history of refusals. I think there's 4. There's been 3 dismissed on appeal. You know, there is no way we could contemplate granting permission for this site, not without a material change in circumstances. And with the greatest respect to the speakers, I've heard or read nothing this evening that convinces me that the previous reasons for refusal and the previous dismissed appeals are still sound, are compelling and convincing. And I'm happy to second a motion to refuse the application as per the order papers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spooner. I will obviously come to Councillor Perry in a second, but I do agree with Councillor Harwood. We can't refuse an application on policy just before this and say we're sticking by our policy and then go against our policy because we feel like it. We need to be, we are a regulatory committee. I know sometimes we are touched by hearts and minds, but we need to stick with the regulations that we have. Councillor Perry and Councillor Cleater.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We were asked to look favourably on this proposal. So I'll start by saying I do look favourably on this proposal. And I think I accept we have our policies, but I've sat around this committee on 1 or 2 occasions when we've gone against that policy in the rural area. And when I look at the reasons for refusal, I mean, sorry, excuse my sight. It says, let me just read it out. Yeah, will result in significant harm to the character and appearance of this rural location. I'm sorry, it may be written in our policy, but don't tell me that. I mean, it doesn't. It's actually rather a nice building that's replacing rather a tatty building, and it's. I actually think sometimes we're not box tickers in this place. We do have policies, but sometimes we have to look at a policy and say, sorry, you know, in this particular instance, I mean, let's face it, we look at each application individually, don't we? We're always told to do that. I think there is justification, strong justification for supporting this. And I know Councillor Harwood said it's head against heart. Well, maybe it is, but I actually think the parish council support it strongly. The ward councillor supports it. You know, sometimes we do have to take into account local views. And I think this is a classic occasion when we should think some little bit outside the box sometimes. And so I'll be voting in favour of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perry. I'm not saying that we don't look on everything as an individual policy itself. However, as Will did lay out, we need some strong reasons to go against the inspector going to basically kicking this out 3 times. And that's Councillor. So we do need to be clear that we do need to come up with some strong, if you are mindful to look about approving this, some real strong reasons why. Okay, and I'm not hearing anything so far. Councillor Cleater.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And I have a lot of sympathy, but actually Councillor Harwood's right. It's a regulatory committee. When I worked for KCC, I didn't like their disciplinary policy as a trade union rep, but it was the disciplinary policy. Now, the thing to do if we don't like policies is we review them and change them and do that. So unfortunately, I will be supporting the recommendation. I feel really sorry for the applicants, but at the moment, we're a regulatory. I can't see anything that we can approve it on.
Councillor Sumskill and then Councillor Jeffries, did you indicate to talk as well? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. If I noticed the plan, the red line plan is on a small part of the larger area that was shown on the other drawings. If there was a mind to approve this, is there any safeguard that the larger areas around this would not be developed? I think the applicant mentioned that he would enhance the area, but what we have here is a red line just around a small section of it.
Yeah, good, come in, please, Tony.
Yeah, if you look at the history in terms of set out in the report, there's lots of parcels of land along that stretch, and the appeals relate to different parcels of land along that stretch of road. So if this application were approved, it would be much more difficult to kind of resist development on those other parcels. I think in terms of someone mentioned about character, the previous inspector noted that at the western end of the road, it is built up, but as you travel east, it's a single track rural road, and so the character is very different. And I think that's why the 4 appeals have been dismissed. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffries.
Yeah, can I just have some clarification from officers? The appeal in the 23 application and appeal was on the old local plan. And if I remember rightly, it was simply harm that was the hurdle to get over, or to get under rather. And the new local plan, the local plan review, introduced the word significant. So in my understanding, the bar has gone down in order to get over it. Is that the case? And therefore, if that is the case, does this really cause significant harm? It clearly causes harm, but is it then significant? So I'm still wavering, and I'd like just a clarification on that.
The 2023 appeal was determined under the current local plan. It was for a deck dwelling, somewhat a larger dwelling. This one is more modest, but the inspector did identify significant harm.
it says the proposed development would harm, not cause significant harm in terms of the paragraph on page 114, which is why I'm questioning whether or not the inspector said harm or significant harm. And can you just clarify for me that was, how would that wouldn't have had, the 23 application wouldn't have had full weight to the LPR, which was passed in 24. It might have had some weight given to it. It wouldn't have full weight, would it?
Sorry, on page 114, it does clarify that the inspector said significant harm. Yeah, but that's what's been assessed against, Councillor Jeffries. So it's on the 2023.
The bullet point, fourth bullet point down, proposed development would harm the character and appearance of the area, it says. Doesn't say significant harm.
Yeah, if you look at, it says this would be contrary to policies, blah, 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 blah. Together these require development proposals in the countryside to not result in significant harm to the overall appearance of the area. Thereby, the inspector thinks that it would result in significant harm.
It's further down.
That's, yes, second penultimate paragraph.
No, that's what he's assessing the proposals against. He says it would. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. Right. But he said it won't cause significant harm.
He's agreed. That's why it's lost it. That's why it lost at appeal, Stuart, because it's been judged against causing significant harm within the countryside. Yeah, and they lost. Yeah,
the inspectors considered it against SP9.
I read it differently, I must say.
Okay, thank you. That's noted, Councillor Jeffrey. I think we've had a healthy debate. I've got a proposer for papers. I've got a seconder from Councillor Spooner. No one else has proposed an amendment. So I'm going to move to the vote as per the papers. Okay, so all in favour of refusal. Seven for refusal. Those against? 5 against. Yep, 5 against. And abstaining? No abstaining. Yeah, that is refused. Okay. Moving on into item, I lost one of my papers, item 15. Okay, I call upon to introduce the item, please.
Thank you, Chair. This plan application is for subdivision of the existing cafe and retail unit into 2 separate self-contained uses, hot food takeaway and a retail unit. The site is in Headcorn District Centre and Headcorn Rural Service Centre. The vacant application building is located on the east side of the North Street. The main physical changes are internal. However, the proposal includes installation of external kitchen extractor flue and fan on the rear of the building and changes to the fenestration. Views of the proposed flue from the North Street limited by the side elevation location, setback from the front elevation and the shallow pitch roof. The proposal will bring a vacant retail and restaurant building back into use. The building could be used as an unrestricted restaurant without planning permission. The need for permission provides an opportunity to reduce the potential impact of the use with planning conditions. Building located in a sustainable center location with benefits from linked vehicle trips. The proximity to the high street in terms of existing noise and activity is considered, and there are existing uses with similar opening hours and car parking. The parking has been assessed in the report under the paragraph 6.44. The application is acceptable in relation to the residential amenity, highway safety and parking, and there is no objection raised by environmental health officer. In regarding the comment on the location of the primary school, Parish Council comments has been noted, and paragraph 6.50 in the committee report summarized the concern about the location of the primary school. There is an urgent update that the location of the proposed fan has been amended and the fan moved away from the neighbor's garden next to the proposed flue. It is considered the new location is the best location for the fan, and this location would be acceptable in relation to visual impact and heritage asset and neighbors. On this basis, I recommend grant planning permission subject to planning conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have Councillor Thomas for Headcorn Parish Council, please?
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is James. I'm the chairman of Headcorn Parish Council. Headcorn Parish Council is deeply concerned about this application. Firstly, I'm just waiting for time. Firstly, this application would be in contravention of the NPPF paragraph 97. This states that local planning authorities should refuse applications for hot food takeaways and fast food outlets. A, within walking distance of schools and other places where children and young people congregate, unless the location is within a designated town centre, or B, in locations where there is evidence that a concentration of such uses is having an adverse impact on local health, pollution, or antisocial behaviour. In particular, B will only be evidenced when it's too late. Unlike its predecessor, Foodies, which was essentially a village coffee shop with a once-a-week pre-ordered collection pizza service. If this type of establishment is allowed to run as per the application, it could easily become an antisocial behaviour hub. Our local beat officer has serious concerns that the area could become linked to VAWG and child exploitation with this particular location, especially adjacent to a park on a quiet street. Maybe specifically asking the local beat officer for a report would help. As an application, this is more suited to a busy town centre where police, etc., would be more on hand. This also will be contributing an enormous amount of litter, not only to the high street, but also in surrounding lanes as people jettison their rubbish into the ditches and verges in the countryside as they leave the village, as we know only too well. The second biggest problem we have with this application is the fire risk. The layout of the interior will not facilitate easy evacuation and will, in fact, trap anyone behind the counter, especially upstairs inside. Should there be a fire, which given the nature of fried food of the business, it is highly likely. There is a much higher statistical likelihood of fires in fried food establishments. As we know from first-hand experience in Headcorn, as we've had several devastating fryer fires, the last one this June. Foodies has insufficient parking, which didn't matter as it was only catering to a different market of the day time, walk-ins. A fried food shop would have a vastly different clientele and is beside an extremely busy light signal controlled crossroads that does not facilitate stopping, ordering and picking up food. Due to the limited on-road only parking, the likelihood is that customers will park illegally on the double yellow lines or across neighbouring driveways, causing obstruction on this narrow stretch of road directly by this busy major crossroads. A road that sees over 120,000 vehicles a week, according to our last traffic survey in 2022. Along with many huge vehicles from HGVs to buses and
Sorry, Councillor,
large.
Can I ask you to sum up? You've had the 3 minutes.
Yes, my clerks did actually speak to the embassy officer and explained that I was dyslexic.
Yeah, so we've
And
given,
I've been given more.
we've given extra minutes. We've given you 4 minutes to account for that. So I do ask you to wrap up your statement, please.
Can I just finish this last bit?
Yeah, so I'm asking you to wrap it up. So thank you.
The building represents the first site upon entering the village before the high street. This significantly detracts from the view and feel of entering a village, whose first building are old and listed buildings, including the Grade 2 star listed Clothall and the Grade 1 listed Norman Church. The food outlet would be deeply incongruous with the rest of the vista from the North Street as you enter the village from the 8274. As is next to a non-designated heritage asset, the chalet and 4 others. This new frontage is unlikely to be in keeping with the nature of Article 4 conservation area. I must reiterate our argument, namely the proposal is in direct conflict with the NPPF. Indeed, Chairman, you'll be putting the council at risk of legal action if you simply ignore the most important policy document. In these circumstances, I must ask that permission is refused, and I apologise that I've taken you a long time.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. We have Mr. Simpson for the applicant. Just because it's fair, do you have any special requirements as well? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Simpson. I'm a planning consultant representing the applicant. I'm speaking in support of the application this evening. The building's currently vacant and sits within the Headcorn designated district centre and the conservation area. Local objections have focused on amenity, parking, and the site's proximity to Headcorn Primary School. These concerns are acknowledged, but the officer report provides a clear and balanced response. Regarding the school, National Planning Guidance advises that takeaway applications near schools may be refused unless the site is located within a designated centre. In this case, the site falls within the Headcorn district centre, so it meets that definition. There's no clustering of takeaway uses nearby, and the council's community protection team has confirmed there is no antisocial behaviour concerns. In terms of heritage, the conservation officer raises no objections. The revised frontage improves the building's appearance, and the flue is discreetly located at the rear with no impact on the public realm. As such, the proposal is considered to result in no more than less than substantial harm, which is demonstrably outweighed by public benefits of bringing a vacant unit back into use. In terms of residential amenity, the proposed opening hours are 10:30 to 9 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sundays. This is comparable to other local businesses. North Street already experiences some background noise from traffic and commercial activity, and the environmental health team has raised no objection. Conditions can easily be secured in terms of the opening hours and proper acoustic and odor control. The cafe and takeaway use is modest in scale with just 12 covers, and the internal layout has been designed to minimize impact. The flue is screened behind the roofline, and most of the equipment is actually internal. However, a full management plan would be secured by way of condition. That would control deliveries, noise, and other compliant procedures. On parking and traffic, the site benefits from nearby on-street spaces, a public car park, and good access to public transport. The takeaway format typically generates shorter visits, which suits the available parking arrangements. The proposal has been assessed against relevant transport policies, and the level of traffic and parking demand is considered acceptable for this location. In conclusion, this is a modest and well-managed proposal that brings a vacant unit back into use. It supports the local centre and includes robust safeguards. The planning conditions provide clear controls and the objections have been carefully considered. Therefore, we hope this committee can support the officer's recommendation and grant permission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Go to the ward member first, Councillor Trubinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to hear my co-councillors' opinions on this before I comment, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Faguch.
Thank you. To actually say that there's plenty of parking is absolutely absurd, because I know there are double yellow lines there, and everybody knows that everybody parks on double yellow lines, especially if you want to pick up a takeaway. Unfortunately, we don't have any views from KCC, and yet they did submit views, didn't they? If somebody can find where the KCC views are, I'd be grateful, because I'm blowed if I can see them within the report, which is rather odd. I am concerned about the proximity to the local school, because the kids are bound to pick something up on their way home. There are quite a few issues that I know have been put as conditions, but given the strength of objections here, I would prefer to defer the application until there is better clarification about whether or not they can control the acoustic and odour, all these other environmental type activities that they're going to have to sort out. And although they're subject to a planning condition, I think these should be sorted out before we make the decision, because of where it is. And I'm still concerned that the views that were submitted by KCC haven't been reflected in the report, but I'm happy to be corrected on that point. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffrey, then Councillor Berry.
Thank you. I must say I'm not at all convinced by the parish council's arguments. Clearly, this is within the commercial bit of the town, the village. There is parking there. I mean, it might be around the corner a bit more as well, but I know Headcorn quite well. Yes, there's a school of 150 yards away, I'm guessing, but there are also places 150 yards from most schools. It kind of feels just a little bit NIMBY. I think I can't see a problem with this. Let's bring the building back into use and make sure we've got some employment. I don't really see any real problem with it.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. I just also want to clarify, it is a primary school, so it's not like a secondary school where the children will be going out. But that's just for clarification, that has been highlighted. Councillor Perry.
Yes, there are plus and minuses to this, I think. But the one issue that did worried me was, I think that somewhere in the report, I was searching for it, it says it's 3 minutes walk from the primary school, which is very close, it seems to me. And I do have concerns about having a fast food outlet or takeaway cafe close to a school. Particularly primary school, secondary school, but the issue seems to be how you define a town centre. And again, reading the report, I think the parish council doesn't see Headcorn as a town centre per se. I agree we can argue that one, but I am concerned about it being so close to the school, and I'm not happy about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. That was the point I just was trying to make. Primary school children cannot leave the school. Okay, so it's not like I go at lunchtime and grab a thing. I think that rule within the NPPF includes more to a secondary school and unhealthy eating, but it'd be more the parents probably stopping for a snack on the way home. Councillor Cleater and then Councillor Summerskill.
Yeah, the only kids I see actually going and maybe popping in there to grab something to eat will be the kids either going to or from Army Cadets. Primary school, your parents are taking them to school, they're in there, they're coming back. My main concern would be the frontage, to make sure that that is still in keeping. Antisocial behaviour, I found that a bit amusing, that, because from what I hear from Councillor Barwick, who goes to Headcorn quite a lot, actually I think Sainsbury's experience more antisocial behaviour than anywhere else, and we're not suggesting. And what I would say is, in Shepway, when I'm going round my ward, I see the parents coming out of school, picking their kids up, taking them to Greg's, getting them. The parents are going to be the ones to manage that. It's not a secondary school. Would I love it to be back to a cafe, etc., rather than a takeaway? Yeah, but that's not a planning reg thing. That's just my personal preference. But I think on the basis, there is parking, and I've just been conferring with Ziggy. I was quite shocked. Foodies had shut, actually, which shows you how long it is since I've been to Headcorn, because I used to like popping in there. But there are a wide variety of food outlets in Headcorn, all within walkable distance. And to be quite honest, I think the pub's closer to the primary school than a food place, just saying. But on a planning note, I don't think we've got any reason to refuse. Do I think there's too many vape shops, nail bars, fast food places all over this borough? Yes, but there's not a planning reason we can refuse this, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Summerskill.
Yes, and just have clarification as to what the restricted on-street parking is on North Street. Is it time limited or what? Because it's shown as a short section of North Street.
Councillor Summerskill, the actual ward councillor is saying 2 hours, he believes. Is that correct?
Yeah, time limited.
Councillor Jeffries.
Can I propose put the papers?
And I'll quite happily second you. Okay. So Councillor Gooch, and then I'll come back to Councillor Kaminsky.
I'm sorry, but it's very rare that KCC make objections. No, they don't. He hasn't objected, but they have made a slip of the tongue there. But quite clearly, on the 29th of August, and I'm checking the application number, the KCC wrote and said, admittedly, they're saying submission that I would raise no objection on behalf of the local highway authority, subject to submission of a construction management plan before the commencement of any development on site, which it measures to prevent discharge of service water, temporary traffic management, and that kind of thing. Now, it may well be that you decided that that wasn't relevant to this application, but I got it off the website, and I just don't think we should just let it go. I'm sorry, yes, I have got to be in my bonnet about it.
So I normally say construction management plans, so we normally condition them because they normally come after. And we don't normally review them because they are a management plan as such to go with it.
So it will go on the condition.
We can
I'm
add it.
bleating for nothing, am I?
I'm quite happy to add it as a condition.
I think in terms of the external works, it's a flue and a fan. So this type of condition we would normally add to a housing development of sort of 50 houses. So it's not really of a scale that's required for this type of application.
I wondered if that was the case. but I do think it should have just been mentioned in the report, particularly as we've been bashing KCC because they never object to anything, never say anything, and yet lo and behold, there's actually something. I couldn't believe it. So, which is why I think it perhaps should have been mentioned. I take your point.
What we could do as a compromise, for instance, the conditions talks about sort of wheel washing. So what we could do is kind of amend that condition in terms of I don't know, workers' vehicles on the parking spaces outside and management of that. So we can sort of if we sort of delegate to officers to kind of amend the condition put forward by KCC to kind of relate to what's proposed.
I'd be happy for officers' discretion to be used because I do appreciate it doesn't half look like overkill, but I'd hate to think that we ignored something from KCC when we've actually got it.
You happy with that, Stuart? Okay. Councillor Drabinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right. I won't go into repeating everything that the parish council mentioned, but at one point, antisocial behaviour, unless you can condition it that card payments only will be accepted, then there will be problems. I can guarantee it. That's a fact. Only last week, there was a big altercation in the middle of Headcorn High Street. Secondly, location-wise, it is not in the main road where all the other restaurants are. It's significantly a distance away from them. It's around the corner on a place where there are no other business other than the vets. And it really is out on its own there. It does have some spaces along the front, although generally, as Maureen just said earlier on to me, they tend to be full up. And it will affect that area quite drastically. It will change the nature of that particular part of Headcorn because all the other takeaways are at the other end of the high street, you know, a fair distance away. In fact, they're all further away than the school is. And the school is not 3 minutes walk, it's probably less than 2 minutes. But which again, for me is a concern, whether it's primary school or secondary school, it doesn't matter. I personally would be against this application for all the reasons that the chairman of the parish council said, but also for the reason that I've just said. It is not in the main part of Headcorn where the other takeaways are. It's a distance away. So it will affect that area, that character of that area quite significantly. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chairman. A very small thing, and because of the size of this application, it doesn't qualify for biodiversity unit gain. However, there are material changes to the building, and both the NPPF and our local plans support integral niches. And this is, as pointed out, just outside the main kind of lightest village centre area. The back wall is just literally a brick flank wall, which is going to have a flue coming out of it. There's no doors, windows or anything else in it. So I suggest that a back tube would work within the eaves on the back. So I think we should add a condition just requiring a back tube for the rear of the building in the eaves.
Okay. Yep, no issue with that. Well spotted. Councillor Harwood. Okay, does anyone else wants to add anything? We have a proposer, we have a seconder. Yeah, Councillor Jeffrey did. Yeah. So, okay, so on that note, I'm going to move to the vote. So, all in favour? So 8-4. Those against? 3 against. And those abstaining? 1 abstaining. Okay, that is approved. Okay, moving on, item 16. Item 16 is a starred item. Unless any members wish to see it introduced, I will move from the chair. Proposed as per the papers. Do you have a seconder? No, he's already closed it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just done that, Tony. We have the conversation. No, nobody. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cleater. So, all in favour? Unanimous. Okay. Approved. Item. Right, moving on then. Item 17. Will, you're up again. Because I also think that Councillor Harwood would want to see this one reintroduced unless you have to go to the start item.
I'm not raising anything explicit. No.
Fine.
No, I don't want to raise anything on this one, so happy for you to.
Oh, okay. Right. Yep. Okay, in that case, I'll propose from the chair as per the papers. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, thank you, Councillor Reardon. All in favour? Okay, and that is unanimous, so that is approved. Okay, moving on then. Appeals list. I call upon Tony Ryan to go over the appeals list and to answer any questions from councillors.
I think the only point that I want to make really is in terms of the allowed appeal at Minton House. Officers, after reading the appeal decision, noticed that the inspector didn't consider the council's 20% B&G requirement. So we are currently seeking legal advice on that in terms of how we take that forward.
Any questions for Tony? Not you, Tony. Tony. Councillor Cleater.
Just to comment that yet again, we lost the number 2. It wasn't one of Mr. Lee's, was it? You know, it does my head in, but there you go.
So thank you for highlighting that. I will raise a note about that. That's obviously the site that we know about. Obviously, Turinsky will know very well about that site itself. Going forward, these are going to probably have to come back to committee. All of these will have to come back to committee because we are seeing a pattern emerging. So the conversation with the officers is about bringing them back so that we can actually take a decision and maybe get some better results out of them. Okay. Turinsky.
I think you've probably said what I was about to say. I have noticed that there has been appeal after appeal after appeal on the Meadows. We've got all the plots coming in that were kicked out, basically. You know, that does give me a concern about fees, if nothing else. You know, if we're going to lose them all, so we need to sort of somehow move on it one way or the other, I think. And if we're going to go to appeal, we need to get some solid advice and reasons.
I do believe the SPD is back out again for consultation, so hopefully that will give us some more weight behind some of our decisions. Councillor Harwood, did you want to come in on that?
Only that we approved it well, I didn't, but the Policy Advisory Committee approved the Regulation 18C last Tuesday or whenever it was, and it's going to Cabinet next Wednesday. After that, it will go out, but then of course it's got to come back, and as I explained to Policy Advisory, it's got to go to a Regulation 19. So we're not out of the woods yet, but it is gaining a little bit more clout with each hurdle it jumps.
Okay, and before I bring the meeting to a close, just remind everyone training Monday is Monday. All existing members need to be there. Everyone needs to be there for that one. So, okay.
Oh, stop being bossy there.
Okay. Thank you all, and good night.